Just started recording. So hi everyone and welcome to TUG's webinar, Lock Down Your Media Strategy. So today we're going to be talking to you about how to stay alert with your media planning. So for any of you who don't know me and don't know TUG, I'm Emily, I'm Commercial Director at TUG, and TUG is a global performance marketing agency, and we've got offices in London, Toronto, Sydney and Berlin. So to quickly talk you through the agenda for today, so Ayisha, who is our Head of Paid Media, will be talking through the impact of the latest government announcements on media planning. He'll then hand over to James and Ayisha, who also work in the paid team at TUG, who will talk you through channel trends and tactics. And then finally back to Ayisha, who will wrap up and just discuss some useful tools and takeaways. We should also have time at the end for some questions, so feel free to post them in the chat whilst we're presenting, and we'll do our best to answer them all at the end. So Ayisha, over to you.
Thanks, Emily. I'm sure most of you saw that the UK government unveiled a lot more detailed roadmap for getting people back to work and 5 steps to do that. These announcements are going to result in demand rises in certain industry. I'm now going to take you through the 3 main takeaways. Firstly, some businesses can reopen. These 5 steps have a flexible timeline for different types of activity and businesses. So the onus is now on individuals and business owners to understand the rules for their industry and ensure they've got the relevant safety measures in place for staff and for customers. The government highlighted construction and manufacturing. This could lead in demand for takeaways, relevant software, safety equipment and more. Secondly, avoid public transport. The government advised against using public transport and encouraged bike and car use. Bike shops are already seeing increase in demand, so it's either supplying that demand now or building audiences to supply when there is enough stock to service that built up demand. There are car sharing services that will see an increased demand as a result of that announcement as well. Our client Zipcar will be one of them. Lastly, people come first. Keeping people safe is the main concern. Anything can be changed with good reason to ensure that people are not put at risk unnecessarily. Just always remember that people come first and you'll do the right thing with your marketing strategies. At TUG, we've built a rough timeline of industries that are allowed to reopen based on government guidelines. This is the best timeline that we can create that's based on the information that's available now. The marketing strategy for your business should be in place immediately to reflect this and working towards the timelines given. For example, if you own a restaurant, we've seen that there's a loose opening date in July, which we've shown in the diagram here. You should be building an email list that regularly update your potential customers as well as target customers that are on social channels or searching for the best information that's available about restaurants. You should be nudging them towards opening dates and providing updates if and when the government changes their advice. And healthcare treatments are also able to restart this month. We're going to look at some examples later in the slides. But there are also businesses that have diversified during this lockdown, like M&S and Morrison's, who now operate on Deliveroo. They should be planning to maintain their increased exposure and market share once normality begins to return, like moving over to Just Eat now that Snoop Dogg has partnered with them. There's obviously concern about there being a permanent change in user behavior following this pandemic. Signs are still pointing to people wanting to enjoy social events and experience just as much as before. So I don't think it's any cause for concern that demand won't return. People are optimistic and always looking forward to everything they can do when they've missed out over the last few months. The examples I've shown here are some newspaper headlines. They show that people are still going to be booking cruises and are booking cruises, and there are long lines outside Burger King's, lines outside KFC's. Once you're open for business, your consumers will come back. If that's not optimistic, I don't know what is. It also goes without saying that there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. People want to be reassured that they're not going to lose the money when they make the next purchase. As the screenshot shows, First Choice are doing a great job of reassuring their customers on their website, letting people know they're still protected if there's disruption, and highlighting that even if they book now, they won't need to pay until closer to their departure dates. Domino's are also doing a great job of highlighting the measures that are in place to eradicate any risk. In the screenshot I've pasted here, it shows that they're calling out the measures they've applied to delivery orders. They've also released a great ad on TV explaining how they maintain social distancing in their shop and how they prepare their pizza safely. I'm now going to hand over to James and Ayisha to talk through channel trends and tactics.
Perfect. Thank you, Asha. Hi, my name is James. I'm a programmatic specialist at Tug. And here are some of the trends that we've identified since the beginning of lockdown. So firstly, the way we consume media has become increasingly more digital, and the speed at which this process is taking place has also sped up. For example, films are now having online releases on streaming platforms instead of in theaters, such as Pixar's new film Onwards. This goes straight onto Disney+, a platform that is currently over 50 million paid subscribers, something that was not expected to happen for them until 2022. So that's quite interesting. Secondly, more people are listening to the radio. So research from the Radio Centre showed that 38% of commercial radio listeners are tuning in for an extra hour and 45 minutes every single day. And finally, there's been a rise in something that's called the virtual experience, with more traditional offline forms of media being consumed online, such as the National Theatre, which is doing free weekly releases of their production on YouTube, and the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, which has now become a virtual event for everyone to attend. I think these trends are really important to identify when it comes to deciding your media strategy, especially the virtual experience as a service, because it's likely to be continued to be offered when lockdown is lifted. So I'll now pass you on to Ayisha to talk about some of the trends she has noticed as well.
Thanks, James. Hi, my name is Ayisha and I'm a Biddable director here at Tug. As COVID continues to shape the media landscape, here's a few trends that have stood out to me. People have more time on their hands during and coming out of lockdown, and they're spending more and more time online and embracing social media. The Drum have reported unprecedented rises in screen time, with engagement on TikTok and Instagram increasing by 25%. That being said, Facebook have seen a decrease in ad spend within their platforms. This is likely due to advertisers pulling back spend and knee-jerk reactions, and as many marketing teams experience disruption. More engagement and less advertisers on social media are clear signals of an opportunity to be taken care of and advantage of. Looking at e-commerce, it's no surprise that as retailers have been forced to close their brick and mortar shops, that more purchases are being made online. This can be seen in the level of demand for many items such as books and toys, homeware and so on, are experiencing demand higher than Christmas and Black Friday. In addition to this, Amazon, a huge e-com giant, are struggling to keep up with demand on site. And as business booms, Amazon Ads is increasing profits by 40% in Q1. As people are more likely to purchase online during lockdown, it's definitely worth increasing your ad spend to drive incremental sales. Final pick here is, during the COVID period, we've seen new players expand further into the market, such as Nextdoor. This is in line with the increasing feel of community within local areas and people coming together, which is a really positive thing to happen during this time. Emerging platform Nextdoor is a neighborhood hub app designed to bring communities closer together with local recommendations, news, event information relevant to their local community. There's some really great opportunities to advertise on this platform with some really highly targeted approaches right down to postcode level. My top pick is going to be the change in the user buyer behavior when it comes to e-com. As have shopping habits changed forever, those users that were previously adverse to making purchases online, are those users building confidence during this time? I'll just hand back to James now.
Perfect. So looking at the trends, we can identify that people are now consuming media differently. And hence from this, we're also seeing the path to conversion alter. So the traditional funnel, which is shown here, is changing. So firstly, in some cases, it is elongating with latent demand. For example, with cruises being booked and planned for 2021. This requires more upper funnel activity. So when people are ready to convert, you have a full audience at the top. And in some cases, it is actually shortening. So for example, Emily right now is currently trying to purchase a bike. So previously, she would have probably visited the shop, tested it, done her research online and everything involved. But now, since they're in such high demand, the path conversion is much shorter. So it's just finding one and getting it immediately. So over the next few slides, myself and Ayisha are going to highlight how we can respond as marketeers with different tactics based on the funnel, with myself looking at the upper and Ayisha focusing more on the lower. Cool. So firstly, on the upper funnel, in your approach to the media strategy, you need to think about the user and also the user journey. So as mentioned on the previous slide, this is likely to have changed and will continue to change as we progress through the phases of lockdown. So here are some things to consider when it comes to planning. Firstly, your traditional audience may not be converting right now, but it is vital to stay front of mind for when they are prepared to through upper funnel awareness activity. For example, if you're in the travel industry, your demand right now is not likely to be at the levels it used to be, but planning for a latent demand is key. So when the user is ready to convert, they think of you. And secondly, those that are currently converting or engaging with your brand might not be the regular audience that you see. They're probably new. So you need to identify who these people are by using audience profiling tools, not just looking at their interests, but also their demographics, their location. And you'll probably see that it's changed from what you'd normally expect. And hence, you would need to change your media strategy to continue to attract those new users and focus on retention. And finally, it's right message, right time. Now more than ever, messaging is crucial to a media strategy. Often it is focused around conversion, and yes, it should be for those that are converting right now, but it should also be about education for others, making sure that they're aware that you are there when the demand returns, engaging with them whilst they're in the consideration phase. Okay, so leading on, here are some channels to consider in your upper funnel activity to a new media strategy. So firstly, combined with a statistic earlier about radio, audio has become increasingly popular, with Global identifying that there has been an 11% increase in radio listens for a smart speaker. The user is actively listening and you're more likely to capture their attention through this channel. And podcasts is a rapidly growing part of the audio industry. And there has been a small decrease in listenership since coronavirus, but newsfeed podcasts are on the rise. So Alexa's flash briefing has seen a 156% increase in listenership. Moving on, more time at home means more time online, which makes display a great channel to consider. It can be flexible when buying it and allows you to be proactive and reactive when needed. It is great for driving awareness and consideration, as displays can be dynamic and therefore more relevant to the user you are targeting. And it is no surprise, as shown from the graphs, that video viewership has increased since being at home, with YouTube identifying an increase of over 200% of daily views for workout at home videos, titled workout home videos on the 15th of March compared to the rest of the year's average. And again, this channel can be flexible when buying and is great for building brand and driving awareness. But it is also important not to neglect other channels, for example, out of home or print, in your overall long-term media strategy. Because as we progress through the stages of lockdown, these will become increasingly more valuable. I will now pass you on to Ayisha to talk more about the lower funnel.
Thanks. So thinking about your customer and their path to purchase with that immediate demand in mind. So as previously mentioned, it's really important to have an appropriate message for the COVID phase that we're in, being generous in calling out any extended returns, cancellations or offers will have a positive impact on engagement rates by standing out. That right message also acts to build brand sentiment and create loyalty ahead of any potential decreases in demand that you might see later down the line. Here's a great example of a PPC ad for one of our lovely current clients, Zipcar. You can see here that we've used the government messaging, only drive for essential journeys, as well as NHS discounts and calling out the ease of use. If you're experiencing an increase in demand, ensure that you're using this time to effectively widen that net and to continue to grow your potential customer base. For example, we've seen the fashionable pajamas brand Desmond and Dempsey increase their presence on social media, investing heavily on placements such as Instagram stories, which are quite new to them, with brand education, hinting to COVID relevant messaging. such as in the ad we can see here, comfort has never meant more than what it does now. So have a think, could it be a really good time for you to try out something new with these increased levels in demand? If you're in a fortunate and also very tricky position that you can't actually keep up with that increased demand, it's really crucial to capture any potential new customers. For example, you can do this by audience lists and waiting lists so that you can contact them later on when you're able to do so. An idea for this would be to set up a Google Analytics list, which could be used for retargeting later down the line, or also perhaps a Facebook form fill ads to capture their contact details. And at the lower end of the funnel, it's really important to capture as much of that demand as possible. Firstly, PPC search is one of the most reactive and on-demand channels that will also feed back really relevant information on creative messaging and audiences to your businesses and help inform other parts of your marketing strategy. Also at the lower end of the funnel, and if you're in e-com space, it's definitely a good idea to test out or maximize your shopping campaigns, covering off all bases on PPC, Google and Bing, social and Amazon. Making sure that you have an up-to-date feed will really be important when it comes to stock levels and pricing, as we've seen those change rapidly over this time. And rather excitingly, if you are actually a US-based retailer, Google has released a free version of Google Shopping, which would be really worthwhile in checking out. Lastly, although we're spending more time at home and often working from laptops, mobile is still king when it comes to digital. Ensuring your brand's goods and services are easily discoverable and purchased on mobile is very important to any successful digital marketing campaign. You can consider using the Google Site Speed Test to check what Google thinks about your mobile website performance and conduct a checkout even yourself via mobile. Look out for the number of steps, how long it takes, and also compare to any key competitors to get a really good understanding of where you're at. So hopefully we've got your creative marketing juices flowing with some of the channel strategies and tactics that we've spoken about. We do understand that it's really difficult to know when to do the upper funnel and when to do the lower funnel tactics. So I'll hand over to Ayisha, who will give you some ideas of how you can monitor this within your industry.
Thanks, Ayisha and James. I'm now going to talk you all through a couple of tools that we use at Tug that are really useful during this time, and then I'll finish with the main takeaways after that. As we mentioned earlier, healthcare is another vertical that has been affected by the pandemic. My next two examples are related to that. So audience monitoring and profile tools will ensure that your brand can gather the key insights about your audiences. This will help you understand media channels that your audience are using and how best to convey that message to them. At Tug, we use YouGov to understand this and pull regular reports to gather these insights. We work with a private medical care provider called Genesis Care, and they want to understand how people diagnosed with cancer felt about the pandemic. As you can see from the chart I've pasted above, there's 21%. There's a 21%. Cancer patients are 21% more likely to class COVID-19 as a major threat. We use this insight to update PPC messaging, which is shown above that chart, and we prominently display the screening and preventative measures that are in place for all the treatments at their centres. And at Tug, we also use competitor monitoring tools. This example is AdGuru, but we also use Adfina. These allow us to monitor competitors at a vertical level. These tools will ensure that you're aware of any advertisers returning or becoming more aggressive in the auction and what their messaging strategy is. It's important to understand what advertisers are doing, especially when you've had to come out of the auction because of the pandemic. And IVF treatments are a great example. The government ordered these clinics to close and cease treatment when the pandemic was just starting. And now with the announcement, they're just allowing them to start to reopen again. When these clinics were ordered to close, most advertisers paused their activity, and that's what you would normally expect. This is where the monitoring tools would be needed. So if a clinic you're working with pause their activity and you've got no other means of knowing what competitors remain in the auction, what messaging they're using, unless you're willing to spend hours researching that all yourself. And now, with clinics starting to return, you want to understand what the messaging is, what the level of spend is, and what they're doing in the auction as well. So having this knowledge will help you adjust your strategy and be more efficient in the auction. And using the competitor monitoring tools will help you do this and to help you make improvements. And then finally, the key takeaways from this session are: 1, stay front of mind when you're targeting users in the upper funnel. These users might not be ready to convert in your industry, but they will when the opportunity returns. 2, serve the right message to users lower in the funnel. They need to know what your product is, if it's safe, and that your business has taken the necessary precautions. And 3, understand your industry. Monitor your competitors and understand how the behavior and media consumption habits have changed. Thank you all for your time. I'll hand back to Emily.
Thanks so much, guys. So hopefully everybody that's joined us today, hopefully you found that interesting. If you do have any questions, then just pop them in the chat. We've got 5 minutes left, so we will answer them now. One's come through already from Catherine. So how do you know how your path to purchase has changed? Ayisha, are you all right to take that one?
Yeah, cool. That's fine. So to understand that, I will start looking at the tools that I've just mentioned and a couple others. So firstly, we know that media consumption has changed. So I'll look to identify the best channels to use at different parts of the funnel. So I mentioned YouGov, and with YouGov, you can look at your target audience and identify what channel they're most likely to use. So if you're looking at upper funnel targeting, you may want to see if, for example, TV is the best place to target them, or radio, and you can pull those reports based on your target audience segments. And then I would look at Google Ads or Analytics to pull a time lag report to understand how the time to purchase have changed and if they've changed any other habits, like what they search for and what else they're doing in the auction before they actually convert.
Okay, thanks. Hopefully that's answered your question, Catherine. So we've got another question from Hannah, who says, for building brand awareness right now for future conversions, what kinds of KPIs would you recommend and how would you determine what budget to allocate? So James, as that's a brand awareness question, do you want to take that?
Cool. So the KPIs would need to be adjusted away from the traditional conversion ones that you focus on, such as CPA, and more towards softer conversions, such as lead gen or content engagement with competitions, for example, whilst also focusing on the side of engagement, such as CTR, time on page, and number of pages visited when your user actually reaches the site. And when it comes to the budget side of it, there's a few things that you probably need to consider. So firstly, what is your brand selling? Obviously, there is a big difference between e-commerce and travel, for example, in terms of both demand and lead time. And this will likely impact the KPIs that you set, and identifying the KPI and the audience you want to reach. So then deciding how to reach them from there. For example, if you're looking to do a lead gen, then social will be one of your top channels. But if you're looking to building reputation through media like TV, then your budget will need to be a lot bigger.
Okay, and Ayisha, have you got anything to add? I know the question was about brand awareness, but maybe you have, I guess it's a relevant question for the kind of lower funnel conversion as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So KPIs are changing alongside with the user journeys and the different stages of the funnel. So firstly, at the bottom of the funnel, let's make sure that we are maximizing the sales and revenue at that stage to its utmost. We are still in business to be performance marketing at the most that we can. After that, then start to think about the next stage of that. So is it now I'm receiving a different consumer to the website? So are they converting at a lower conversion rate? So therefore, maybe I can have a look at relaxing some of those CPAs dependent on the conversion rates and potentially changes in CPCs as well. It would be worthwhile to have a look at a secondary KPI as well, such as CPCs and CTRs, just to help have something to sort of work towards. And in terms of the budget, it would be really great to have a look at some of the tools which Ayisha mentioned. So have a look at the competition to see what they're bidding on within PPC. Use the Facebook tools to have a look to see what some of your competitors are doing there. And then move then to the forecasting tools that should be able to give you a really good idea of how much your budget should be for this stage.
Thanks, great answer. Okay, we've got a couple of other questions, so we'll just try and wrap those up in the next minute or so. So Gabriella says, what messaging would you recommend for travel companies in terms of ensuring that you're adhering to government messaging, not being seen, sorry, I've read that totally wrong, not being seen as encouraging people to oh, she's made a mistake as well, sorry. I guess maybe Ayisha, you can take this one, because I know that you mentioned a travel example, but just not wanting to, what can travel companies do to make sure they're not encouraging people to travel until we know that it is safe for people to do so?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take that one. So what most companies are doing now, and what we're seeing, is a lot of searches around 2021 travel and travel for that time period. So if people are searching for travel and are interested in travel, and you're landing people on your website, it's just updating that messaging so they know that you're taking government advice into consideration. So you're not saying to them, you're going to have to travel, or if you book this, you have to travel. It's, we will be keeping up with government advice and making changes to our travel arrangements if anything changes during the time or during the period that you're due to travel. And like first choice, as I mentioned, they're saying you don't have to pay until 4 weeks before. So it's basically just making sure that you're letting people know that you are taking advice from the government, and things could change near the time, and not just encouraging them to buy without giving them any sort of messaging around what could happen and what is going on with the pandemic at the moment.
Yeah, okay, I agree. I think that's really good advice. And okay, quickly, just our final question from Dave. So for anyone who hasn't necessarily tried social before, what are the best ad formats to use for maximum impact? So I'll throw that one back to you again, Ayisha, to finish off.
Okay, I'll start and I'll finish. So at the moment, a video is a really good format that you get maximum impact. So Facebook actively encourages people to use video formats, and you get higher reach and more exposure using those formats. So what I would say is always test the different formats. There's loads of different formats like video ads, carousel ads, collection ads, depending on what vertical you're in and depending on what types of images or videos you do have. Then just optimize based on that, and try formats that take advantage of what you have available.
Perfect, thank you. All right, cool. So that brings us to the end of our session. If any of you guys do have any further follow-up questions, then please do get in touch with me. We're also offering free Q&A sessions with our experts, Ayisha and James. But that brings us to the end of our session. Thanks everyone for joining us, and speak to you soon.
Thank
Bye.
you.